Hello and welcome to another episode of the Heart Centre Business Podcast. This is episode number 429, which means you can find all the relevant links and the show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/429. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you my top 8 course creation tips. So if you've been thinking about creating an online course, this is going to be a super helpful and practical episode for you. Let's dive in. Hello, I'm Tash Corbin, a business strategist and mentor based on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. The mission of this podcast is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to make more money and in doing so, change the world for the better. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi and Jinnaburra people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So I'm going to dive straight into my top 8 course creation tips. And this is for anyone who wants to create an online course. A lot of this will also relate to if you want to create a membership or a high ticket group program, but some of it is more course specific. So let's dive into them. The first tip that I have for you, number 1, is niche even further. So when we create an online business, when we are offering online services, VIP services, one-to-one services, there's a lot of scope for you to be able to craft the offer and deliver the services in a bespoke way specific to the individual. Now, the further you go into creating group programs and the bigger that group program is, the more you need to actually be able to craft something that's going to be able to serve everyone who does the course, right? You need to be able to create something that's relevant to every single student. The way that you do that is to micro niche. So you may have niche to helping parents who want to be more connected to their kids and they don't want to yell as much or something along those lines. But when it comes to then creating a course, an online course or program, then you need to get even more specific. Now, you get more specific either by the niche in terms of demographics or psychographics or sensographics. So you might get more specific in the niche in demographics with the parenting course by focusing on a certain age range or focusing on a certain model of parenting that they want to implement. Or you might focus on a certain family structure. So it's for single mums or it's for parents who have meddling in-laws or, right? So that's the demographic of who this course is for. But you can also look at the psychographics of the individual, so the niche. So it might be a more specific goal. So wanting to be a good parent is a very broad goal. But is there something that they specifically want to achieve or they specifically want to overcome that this course could be specifically focused on? So it might be focused on the goal of getting your partner on board with the parenting style that you want to adopt. It might be preparing for parenthood. It might be preparing for co-parenting in the face of divorce, right? So the psychographic is like, what are the things that worry them, what their goals are, like what's going on in their head, right? Psychologically. But then we also have sensographics. So sensographics are what is going on in their day-to-day existence. What do their 5 senses tell them? That is a word I made up, by the way, sensographics. But it's like, what can they see, smell, hear, taste, and touch that tells them that there is something going on that needs to be addressed or that is not what they want. They want to change something that they're experiencing in their day-to-day situation. So in the parenting example, it might be they're really struggling with mornings and getting their kids out the door, or they're really struggling with their kids avoiding school, or they're particularly struggling with having conversations with other people involved in their children's lives, or, they really want to make sure that they are building that village around them to raise their child, but they want the whole village to understand the way that they want to raise the child or something along those lines, right? So I'm just totally making stuff up on the fly. But my key piece of advice there is micro niche, right? Go super narrow. Think about if I was to ask you, what is the goal that you help people to achieve with this course? that you can explain that without using and, or, slash, maybe this, maybe that. It could be this or that. I want you to get really narrow and go as specific as you can with the niche, because that creates a lot more strength in messaging. And it also creates a lot more clarity for people buying that course, that they know it's exactly what they need. It's really lovely that a lot of people want to create courses to help people feel more confident. But there's a huge difference between a course that helps me be more confident as a public speaker versus a course that makes me more confident in the dating pool, or a course that makes me feel more confident in my sense of identity as I start my own business and show up as myself, right? There's an application of that confidence that if you're not specific to the application with your course, you're going to really struggle to create that traction and resonance. Yeah. So think about micro niching. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, create a messaging document about that course. So create what is the core messaging that goes with this course. Include in there the value proposition of the course. So value proposition is the perceived gap in the value between where they are before they buy your course and where they are after completing your course. And that's the value of that transformation. So think about, what is the transformation that your course will facilitate? What change will it help people to make in their lives? What would the before doing the course look like? What does the after doing the course look like? And the value proposition of the course is how the buyer perceives the value of that gap, the value of that transformation. So create a messaging document that clearly states what is the niche for the program, like who is this program for? What does the program deliver? What is the value proposition of that course? Why is that transformation valuable to your audience? What are the kinds of keywords and search terms that people would be looking up if this course was the answer? What questions would they be asking? What are 10 sure signs that someone needs your course? Now, I will say that the show notes for today's episode are over at tashcorbin.com/429. So that list of things to think about in your messaging document we'll put under tip number 2, which is create a messaging document, including the value proposition of your course. Okay. Tip number 3, remember the adult learning principles and consider how you're going to maximize people actually completing your course. Because it's one thing to get people to buy a course, it's another thing to get people to actually finish the course. And do you know what directly impacts the word of mouth and referrals and sales and the momentum that an online course gets? It's how many people actually finish the course and get the results. So one of the models that I love is the learn, do, share model. That means for every piece of information that people learn, so for every core learning that people experience, I give them something to do with that learning, so an action to take, and then get them to come and share. Generally, most of my courses include a community or some kind of feedback loop. And I get people to come and share, okay, what have you done, or what are you going to do, or what is something that's come up for you here? So I get people to do that. Learn, do, share at each step of the process. So for each module, what are they learning? What are they doing as a result of that learning? And what did I want them to come back and share with the group or with me? And the reason why you do that is because it, number one, creates a sense of accountability, because I've got something to share. So that's going to keep up that momentum. But also it embeds the learning for adults. So if you just teach adults information, but you don't give them anything to do with that information, any action to take now that they know that information, then the likelihood that they will actually figure it out for themselves or remember that information that they've learned actually diminishes significantly. So what we want to do is use that learn, do, share model to maximize people's completion and really take into consideration the adult learning that is needed in order for your course to deliver great results. So tip number 3, use the learn, do, share model. Tip number 4 is also related to getting people results, and that is the almond milk principle. Now, the almond milk principle is something that I've coined, and it's based on the fact that if I came for a sleepover at your house, one of the things I would say to you is, I'm going to need almond milk for my coffee in the morning because I don't do cow's milk. I drink almond milk with my coffee, and I love my little decaf coffee in the morning. And so You wouldn't then say to me, oh, okay, you need almond milk. That's what you want, right? People join your course because they want something. I came to your house for a sleepover and I've told you what I want. I want almond milk for my coffee in the morning. You wouldn't then say to me, do you know the history of almond milk? Do you know that there are 17 different brands of almond milk available in Australia? I am in this home. We actually have 6 different supermarkets within a 50-kilometre radius. The streets on the way to the first one are this street, then this street, then this street, then this street, right? And then this street and then this. If you decide that you want to go and get it from here, this street, then this street, you wouldn't do any of that, right? If I came to your house for a sleepover and I said, oh, I need to get some almond milk for my coffee in the morning, you would say, get in the car, let's go get you some almond milk. That is the equivalent of buying a course. That's the almond milk principle, right? When you think about someone buying your course, they're not buying your course because they want to understand all of the history of the world in relation to everything that's going on. They are buying your course because they want something. They want to be something, they want to do something, they want to have something, they want to achieve something, they want to overcome something, they want to heal something, they want to discover something, right? They want something. The job of the course is to get them that outcome as efficiently and effectively as possible. So the whole thing behind the almond milk principle is give them exactly what they need to get what they want and nothing more. Because the more information you put into your course, the less likely people are to complete it. And the less that people complete your course, the less they get the outcome. So think about when you think about the modules that you're taking people through, the way that you structure your course, I want you to think about, am I putting this in because I think more information equals more value, which is not true, or is this actually necessary for them to get the outcome that I promised? If it is not necessary, do not include it. And that also goes for bonuses and all sorts of other things, but that's going to come in another tip. So almond milk principle, focus on just getting them what they want as quickly and effectively as possible and keep it as simple and straightforward as possible as well. So if I'm asking for almond milk, get me almond milk. Get me to the almond milk as quickly as possible, yeah? So that is tip number 4. Tip number 5, remember you are not selling information. People don't buy courses to learn things. Now, that wasn't true in the past. In the last 10 years, we've seen a huge shift in people's drivers for why they purchase online courses. The number one reason why people purchase an online course is not for information, it's for transformation. They want to change something. They want to do something. They want to achieve something. So I want you to think about that and remember that as you go about putting together your plan for your course and designing that online course, right? If you're in course creation mode, a lot of people think that their number one job as a course creator is to share a lot of information. I've got a lot of knowledge that I've collected over the years and I want to share that knowledge with other people. That knowledge is available for free on the internet, yeah? Information is no longer a valuable resource in the online world. It's just the reality of the world that we live in, that information is readily available, absolutely free and well filtered through either search engines or AI search tools. We are no longer living in an information economy. Information is no longer valuable in and of itself. You are selling transformation. That is why people buy courses, because they are at point A and they want to get to point C. That is your job, is to help them get from point A to point C. And that transformation is not just a pure, I've got more information in my brain. Our brains are already overloaded. Your job is to help people to achieve an outcome, to achieve a goal, to overcome a challenge. That is what people buy courses for. And the more that you think about that and focus on that and really center that down as you create your course, the more effective that course will be and the more likely people will be to be very excited to buy that course as well. All right, so you don't sell information, it's transformation. Tip number 6, build your minimum viable product. Build your minimum viable product. Now, this is what I was talking about with bonuses and extra information. In order to be ready to sell your online course, you do not need to have 52 modules recorded and written transcripts of every module and accompanying workbooks and 16 bonus interviews with experts in the industry and. You just need a minimum viable product, first and foremost. Now, that minimum viable product doesn't even need to mean that the course exists. Now, that being said, there are a lot of people out there who recommend that you pre-sell your course without having created any of it. And I have seen my fair share of people over the years who pre-sell a course and then take over a year to actually deliver on their promise, or they get really behind, or they get super stressed out and freaked out with course creation, in order to know that that's probably not a great idea to sell something that doesn't even exist yet. As a minimum, inside my Leverage and Launch program, in which I teach how to create and launch online programs, I say to people, at least make the slide decks for every module. So you know what your curriculum is, you know what's going to be in every module, you know what your teaching points are, you know what that people are going to learn, you know what you're going to get them to do, and you know what you're going to ask them to share for every single module. You don't have to record those modules. You can deliver the modules live, or you can record them as you go. But I recommend at least having the slide decks for every module built, because that's minimum viable product. It's not a big leap to go from, I've got the slide decks, now I just need to record them. That's not a big leap. I also want to say that whilst I understand that having transcripts for accessibility is really great, most video platforms that you host on now have auto captions. So if I can't launch yet because I haven't got the transcripts, I haven't got this, I haven't got that, is the thing that's stopping you, I would actually say it's not worth stopping a launch and stopping the course from existing to try and do it all perfectly. Yeah, there's lots of really amazing plugins and bonuses and extras that you can give people these days, but that's not why they're buying your course. They're not buying your course for the sexy bonuses. They're not buying your course for the interviews with people who aren't you, experts who are not you. They're buying it because they want to learn from you. They want to get that outcome. So focus on minimum viable product. What is the bare bones minimum that you need to create and have ready to feel comfortable to sell the course? And then how are you going to ensure that you deliver the course once you've got people buying it? So you might do your first launch as a live round and you just put all your slide decks into a Facebook group, and then you go live into that Facebook group every Monday, and that's their module for the week. And you just do that every Monday for 8 weeks. The first round of your program is going to be a lot of validating that the process is valid and that it works and that people don't get stuck on something, and seeing what questions come up for people. Most of my online courses I delivered as a live round the first couple of times that I sold it, and then I recorded the modules as self-study for people to jump in and do whenever they're ready. So just get to the point where you've got something that's minimum viable product ready to go, and don't assume that more content or more in the product equals more value to people. It's actually often just looks like more work. So I actually have an example from the very start of this year of a course that I didn't buy because it looked like too much work. So I wanted to buy a course on how to improve my website, because I'm doing a big website revamp. And in particular, I'm wanting to learn a little bit more about SEO, search engine optimization. And I want to be able to just understand the very basics of SEO so that I can, share that information with my clients, but also when I am redesigning my website, to think about like what's critical and what's not. What's going to be the most effective to increase traffic and conversions on my website? And what is something that that would be lovely, but it's just, there's a lot of work involved in that, and it would be cheaper and faster and easier for me to get that outcome some other way. And I was so close to buying a very simple SEO course from an industry, very well-renowned person who does like good stuff on SEO and keywords and copy and all that kind of stuff. And then when I went and looked at the sales page for the course, and this course was like $500, it wasn't particularly expensive, but I was doing this, looking for something at a time where I knew that I was going to be ramping up what I was doing in my business. I was a little bit time poor, and I just wanted to like swat up nice and quickly, right? I just wanted to learn nice and quickly. And I went and had a look at this course. It had 6 modules. The modules seemed very simple and straightforward. Yep, absolutely. That sounds really great. But then there was this bonuses section, right? Bonuses section. In the bonuses section, there were 6 1-hour interviews with people who were experts in other things related to SEO. So there was a Pinterest expert, there was a Google Ads expert, there was this keywords optimization expert, I was like, well, if I'm going to do SEO on my website, then probably I will need to watch all of those. So there's another 6 hours of work and learning that I need to put in place. And then I've got to implement what I learned from those interviews. And then there was also a 72-page SEO optimization workbook, I was like, okay, well, I don't know if that's like working through the modules or if that's in addition to what I'm doing in the modules. I don't really understand that. That's okay. Then you also got a free ebook on core SEO principles and And then you also got these bonus masterclasses, and the masterclasses were about SEO. And so then what started out as I think I could bang out 6 modules in the next couple of weeks then started to look like this is going to be 6 months or a year worth of work. And so I didn't buy it. So that person, I'm sure they thought that they were like making it look so much more extra valuable by adding all these bonuses and all these extra resources and all that kind of stuff. But every single bonus that I read about on that sales page just sounded like more work for me. And I'm not someone who is motivated by more work. I am someone who's motivated by more outcomes for less work. And so I didn't end up buying it. Now, I'm really grateful that I didn't buy it in the end, because I was telling this story at a business brunch a few weeks later, and they said, oh, I bought it. It's horrendous and it's so poorly organized, and it's some of the information in the expert interviews actually conflicts with the information inside the modules, and it's very confusing. And so you probably made a good decision not to buy it, because you would have just ended up more confused. So I'm really grateful that I didn't. But I do think that just paying attention for myself to the psychology of why I didn't end up buying it and then telling that story really made me realize, like, this is that whole concept of like almond milk first and foremost, but also just get to the minimum viable product and get it out there, and don't preemptively solve problems that don't exist yet, because that person would have made far more sales, I think, if they'd just stuck to the core messaging, the core outcome that we would buy that course for. So that's tip number 6, minimum viable product. Now, tip number 7 is choose a simpler platform. I think for a lot of people, especially for their first course or, their first really big online course that they're creating, they think that they need to buy the fanciest, most involved platform. They get really worried about protecting their intellectual property, and they get really worried about people getting access to the course who shouldn't have access to the course. You don't have a big enough audience to worry about that yet, for most of you. Most of you don't have thousands of people who are desperately trying to access your course for free. And to be honest with you, if you did, then that you would have enough money from sales coming in that you would be able to hire someone to sort all of that out for you. If you haven't actually got a course that exists yet, just chuck all the modules up into a Facebook group and make the way that people buy the course on a very simple sales page. And then when they purchase, they get the instructions on how to request access to the group. Or host your videos as unlisted on YouTube and embed them onto a password protected page on your website. It doesn't have to be complex. You do not need to buy all those fancy tools. Most people that I've seen who've dived into using a platform like Kajabi or Kartra or Thinkific or Teachable or something like that in their first course have ended up really regretting it, and they end up having to move platforms, or they end up having to start over, or they end up spending more money on the platform than they do actually making sales. And so they end up making a loss. Just pick a really simple tech platform and then validate that people will pay you for this course. And then those people are funding you moving it over to a more in-depth platform or something that's password protected or whatever. just start really simple with the tech, because ultimately we need to get proof that people will actually pay for this and that there's hunger and demand and that you can deliver on your promise before we start spending time, energy and money on fancy schmancy platforms and IP protection and blah, blah, blah security, okay? Now, I definitely do recommend Kartra. It's an all-in-one platform. It's the platform that I use for hosting all of my courses. But most people who ask me about Kartra, they ask me when they're creating their first ever online course, and my response to them is, you're probably not ready for it yet. So don't worry about it just now. But when you are ready for it, I've got an affiliate link and I'm happy to recommend it. And actually, as an affiliate, I can get you access to like free trials and discounts and stuff that you can't normally access if you're just buying it straight from the Kartra website. So get in touch with me and ask me if you are ready to move to something that's a bit more involved technologically. But for now, for most people, I say choose something much simpler than Kartra. By the way, I'll include my affiliate link to the Kartra platform in the show notes of today's episode for anyone who is looking at all-in-one hosting. But it's probably something where I would say you need to have launched at least once, if not twice, before I would recommend, jumping into something as fancy as that. Now, the exception to that is actually tied up in tip number 8. Tip number 8 is make a wait list first. So you may have listened to my previous podcast episode about validating a new offer. That was episode number 416, and I'll link back to that in the show notes of today's episode as well. Waitlists are a really valuable way of getting proof and validation that people are actually interested in your course and you've got a viable audience to actually purchase it. But also your waitlist are a valuable resource for insights about what will drive people to purchase your course. What is it that they're hoping to achieve? What do they see as the core outcomes of working with you? You can do that through emails that you send to your waitlist as you're warming them up and asking them questions. You can really make the most of the connection that you make with people who've joined your waitlist. Even in the way that you get people to join your waitlist, you can get them to answer a couple of questions when they're joining. And that will give you some really good insights into what it is that they're looking for and what they have read, based on what they read on the sign up page. What did they see as the most valuable thing? When I ask people, what is it that I do? Or what would you say is the most powerful thing that I teach as an online business mentor? Everyone will tell me different things. And that's actually a good thing because it tells me that people have found something useful for them in my content and in what I do and how I talk about my work. And that's really helpful for you to be able to get that validation from a waitlist as well. So I'd absolutely recommend that you set up a waitlist. Now, if you set up a waitlist like one of my beautiful VIP clients did recently, I won't say her name because I haven't told her I'm going to be talking about this. If you do set up a waitlist and it is very, very popular very, very quickly, this particular client, she sent out one email and put 2 posts on social media about her new program, which is going to be about $6,000. And she had 56 people sign up to the waitlist in the first week or so. And so when you do something like that, that to me says you have very strong validation, you have very keen interest, and it may be worthwhile jumping straight to a good hosting platform for your program straight away. Number one, the price point says that even if she only makes 2 or 3 sales of this program the first time around, it's going to absolutely fund the setup of that platform and the hosting of that platform for the first couple of launches of the program as well. So the money is definitely going to be there for her. But also because of that price point, being $6,000, people will expect a certain standard of delivery and what it looks like and the platform and the way it's integrated and the experience that they're going to have doing that course. But also she's going to have a strong number of people who buy this course the first time around. And we've actually made a decision to do limited spaces for the first time around to help her just make sure that she's able to manage that customer experience, that student experience, because this is going to be a big undertaking. So most waitlists convert between 15 and 20%. So if you get 100 people onto a waitlist, when you finally do open the doors, about 15 to 20 people from that waitlist will generally join the program. Now, there's a difference. There's lots of things that create differences in that percentage-wise, but that's generally a good rule of thumb to just go by. So for a lot of people, they think that they have an amazing idea for an online course. They think that they have something that everyone in their audience is going to be so excited for it. And then when they actually set up a waitlist for it and they start talking about it and they share the waitlist with their audience, they get 2 people sign up to their waitlist. And they assumed everyone was going to be really excited about it. They assumed that everyone was going to be really pumped and keen and everything was going to be amazing and like, oh, this is going to sell so well. If only 2 people are willing to give you just their name and email address to jump on the wait list, that to me says you've got a core value proposition issue. Like there's a problem there. You need to really make sure that you are looking at why people aren't actually interested. Like that to me sends up huge alarm bells. If you tell your mailing list, if you tell people following you on socials, if you're posting and promoting about it, like I would recommend like 20 ways to talk about your waitlist and maximize the number of people who are signing up for it. If you do those 20 things and you don't have at least 50 people signed up to your waitlist, that to me says you've got a core value proposition issue. You've got a messaging issue. There's something going on here. You're not getting the excitement and the keenness to be on the wait list that you assumed. And so we can fix that. We can do stuff about it, but that's a really important thing to do. So that's why I love setting up a wait list. There's so much insight you can get from a wait list, but also a lot of validation that the assumptions you're making that your audience are going to be involved in or interested in are actually true. So that is tip number 8, set up and promote a wait list like all the places before you actually dive into the course creation piece. Now, if you are interested in how to set up the waitlist and why to do the waitlist thing and what it should incorporate, as I said, we'll have the link to that previous podcast episode over with the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/429. But also I'll have a link there to my waitlist, which is I'm creating an online course about how to create a waitlist, what goes on the waitlist sign up page, what goes on the thank you page, what goes into the emails that you send to your waitlist, and then also how to maximize the number of people signing up to the waitlist, how to maximize conversion from a waitlist into your first launch of your program, and what to do if your waitlist is not converting and people aren't actually buying your thing. So if you would be interested in purchasing that course, I am actually going to have a waitlist special. So anyone who joins the waitlist for that program will get access to like more than 70% off the list price of that program when we first open the doors. So make sure you go and check that one out at tashcorbin.com/429 because that's going to be a really juicy one. And I know lots and lots of people really love the model of waitlist that I actually teach and all the tangible and very practical step-by-step strategies that I teach around using a waitlist to validate a course or online program. So whether what you're wanting to create is a course or a membership or a group program or anything where you're working with people one-to-many in an online platform, that's going to be a really helpful resource and I think it's going to be a very popular course. So make sure you come and check that out at tashcorbin.com/429. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. And until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now.